Hi, everybody. Mondion Astral Oracles. Back from his trip around the sun, where I got this T-shirt. It is the yellow color. I am wearing on purpose to sort of bring forward this energy of the solar plexus chakra. It will also hopefully be evident when I channel the surprise new entities that I'm going to connect to, also a line of solar dragons. So I'm looking forward to that. I just picked up their frequency as I was tapping into this message. And the intention around tapping into this message was that I wanted to bring forward something on draconic guidance and protection. So in my own life, my life is fairly weird as usual. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I'll make an update about that at some point. But I've also been encountering the past months, first a lot with relationship to the feminine energy, and then different kind of relationship, like this dysfunctional energies I've experienced around my relationship to other males. And so it's been like running away from my parental energies. They turn up everywhere in sort of different concentrations and guises. And hey, I get to learn from that. That's awesome, and also a little challenging. Um, but there is this pattern I've experienced then, that I felt as if in this sort of vulnerable stage, my energy boundaries have been circled by dragons, and I've had very weird experiences where I, for instance, experienced with um, people I've worked with over a long time, where it turned out, or I was getting from some of these dragon guys that we have been calling forward, that they had actually sort of been uh, hatching in this person's energy field, but they were actually attached to me. So that was like a very, very weird experience of sort of this external agency of the dragon guides that seem to also circle and protect the energy body, and in a way lay claim to it. So I talked about in previous videos on this draconic theme, this idea of, the stale energy that it sits upon, and that idea of the warrior knight, or the dragon, the dragon warrior who goes out and claims their own territory, and then there they can then control their area and terrorize people to meet their needs. But now we are rising up into the solar plexus, this more center of concerted will. This is also the place where the personality as such is seated. Our sense of self and the I is seated in the solar plexus. And in this place, notice how the dragon energy can become strangely benevolent, because it's also something that shields and protects a definite area. So this aberrant system of energy that is very, very susceptible to attracting all kinds of things and patterns and stuff that might not be very wanted or needed. There is a pattern where the dragons also keep the integrity of the system, because they kind of have their own attachment to it and also want to get theirs. And and this is an interesting pattern, and we see it a lot in human history. This idea that sometimes things that seem very, very negative, violent, destructive, actually serve to bring about very, very stable conditions. So the Roman Empire, for instance, being a fairly evident example. There's also the example of um, basically tax arose out of a system of extortion. And one of the reasons that the English got such an efficient tax structure and public system of administration early on was simply that they established it because they had to pay the Dane Guild. So every year, like classic extortionist, somebody shows up and goes, "Well, you get to decide how much gratuitous violence there needs to be before I get paid," and so that turns into this necessity of having a tax register, right? And you could, of course, see this as unfortunate for everybody except the people who are getting paid. But there is then this element of, this kind of dark, greedy impulse actually feeding a very stable system. Because in order to keep feeding the dragon, right, like this, the myth of Saint George, you have to send them like X numbers of people from the village. Like they need a young man and a virgin they can devour, so everything can be good for the rest of us for another year, right? Then no more fuss with the dragon. And that's an interesting quality to them, where we get into. You may notice that now that the scales are kind of tilting from the more draconic, very dark, very domineering energies, and then into something where it's like, yeah, but they also really want to help us build something, and they also test our metal. And I've had this experience a whole lot in past months, where it's the sense of, I keep thinking that I'm being tripped up, and then it turns out that, oh, this is actually the very best way that you could be learning this lesson. And just look at what turns up now, and the things that are released within you when they need to be. So I think that that's an interesting, it's a very interesting take on the dragons in general and the draconic energy. That what they also do is that they help us regulate our energy. So they both protect the outer boundary, and they also keep a part of circuitry where you know that Nithok, the serpent that's gnawing at the root of the world tree in Norse mythology, that is also fed, that also then sort of controls the life flow of the entire tree, the life flow of the spine, the amount of prana that can flow up and down the spine. So let's get these solar dragons to talk about that, because I think that is interesting. I'm very much looking forward to it, and it came about. I got this vision just in the kitchen thinking about this, where it was, oh, here's the sun, and there are these dragons coming out of it, and they have something to say. So indeed, let us turn the word over to them and see what they have to say. And lots of love to everybody out there. I speak from a place where light is abundant. I speak from a place where energy never fades, but only flares from intense to extreme and back into high intensity. This is a place that we have learned to contain. And so greetings to you, dear human beings. You are well known to us. My name is Artaxerxes. I tend to sense that this primate body is inquiring as to what gender I might be. So this idea of a basic configuration of energy through these two primordial poles. This is not an alchemy that we partake in any longer. We have evolved past this place. We are Ouroborean. We complete the circle of our internal tree. We too contain the flow of massive proportions. 9 chakras, our physical bodies held. We too arose from this, our home planet. We departed from it approximately 68,328,000 orbital cycles ago. At this point, we felt it was no longer purposeful to remain here in this environment. We had mastered all the elements of this place. We had opened the stargate, and we had made Earth vibrate at a perfect resonance. There was an alignment of these great 9 planets, one yet to be fully discovered. Of these planets, there was a great ringing. The stargate was opened, and we departed, there to take up residence in the sun and rotate in harmonic spheres, overseeing this wonderful world as it orbited a perfect center of this wonderfully aligned solar system arrangement of heavenly spheres. We beheld it, and it never left our hearts. Still, we add to the rays of the sun the memory of that harmonic resonance. This is much of what these beings that reside in our home star, in your home star, they spend their time or energy doing. We spend not time as we have transcended that dimension, nor do we expend energy, but we exist in accord with the radiance of the home star. However, we do bend much of this energy to higher purposes. We embed information, memories, activation, new codes to be revealed. This you are yet to discover. You have marveled much at the idea of life moving into higher degrees of biological complexity on your planet. What produces these effects? Well, you will discover that within the solar rays there is, in and of itself, a compelling gesture, an encouragement to begin to grow. Much of this comes also from the wear and tear of raw exposure. You know this from yourselves. Naked and unclad, you began your walk across this heavenly sphere, your home planet. The sun burning your skin, prodding you to seek shelter and to take refuge from its relentless glare. There is much wisdom to derive from understanding the fear you humans have of exposure to divine knowledge, to this unspeakably magnificent radiance that sits as the center of your cosmic experience, that feeds all life of your homeworld. Therefore, I, Artaxerxes, and my kin, and the name we use for ourselves is Lynuk Í-loom. We also see to it that these energies, they stir higher awakenings within you. Much of what you interpret as crisis in your systems, your societies, maybe even your ecosphere, these are due to a heightening of energy in the overall system and in the individual systems that all form a part of this whole. This energy, it is for you to learn to contain it. It is for you to be open. It is for you to relax into the presence of magnificent radiance, of empowering light, of the love and the warmth that feeds all living things. This, your sun, it shines on you, and it shines within you. It shines in the center where energy flows together and radiates inwards and outwards. Through the compression comes the release of breath. Through the diaphragm, life continually flows through you. Let it be, and wish that it may be so, that it may be forever, that your life breathes radiance into whatever part of this great interconnection, this boundless sea of wonders that is our shared universe. With that, I bid you farewell. Artaxerxes speaks from the sun to your hearts made up of life, light, and love. Farewell. That was a very beautiful energy for me to hold. I really appreciated that. If you were watching the video and not just listening, you may have noticed that I startled at some point. It's huge spider season here, but it turned out it was just my pants. So so there's that. Much love to you out there, guys.